What is going on, everybody? My name is John Solo, and today's subject of discussion is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. As we all know, when Episode 7 was being created, Disney and Lucasfilm gave it their all to ensure that their sequel trilogy started off right. This meant exploring every possibility imaginable when it came to the story, the characters, the creatures, etc. And even though most people would agree that it turned out great, there were plenty of ideas considered by Disney that could have made it even better, and worse. Today we're going to talk about some of those ideas they ended up rejecting and learn about the Episode 7 that might have been. Before we get started though, I want to mention a very special promotion that our sponsor Geek Fuel is running right now. Geek Fuel is of course the monthly subscription service that sends you a box filled with over $50 of geeky goodness every single month. Each box includes a t-shirt, downloadable Steam game, and a total of 5 to 7 geeky items from franchises like Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Harry Potter, you name it. Right now they're offering a special deal where you can get 25% off your first month's box by going to geekfuel.com/25offJohnSolo and signing up through that URL. They are by far my favorite nerdy subscription service, and I highly recommend you guys checking them out, so I put the link in the description down below. And without further ado, let's dive right into this. Here are 23 ideas rejected from Star Wars: The Force Awakens. The working title for The Force Awakens during pre-production was Shadow of the Empire, which is actually similar to the title of a 1997 N64 game. Lucasfilm considered quite a few directors for Episode 7, including Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg, David Fincher, and more. But J.J. Abrams was ultimately their first and decidedly only choice. What's interesting is that he actually declined the offer when it was first brought to him, but after a personal visit to his office by Kathleen Kennedy, he had a change of tune. Mark Hamill claims that when George Lucas told them about Disney buying the rights to the Star Wars franchise and then the possibility of a new movie, they would be willing to write out Luke Skywalker from the sequel trilogy completely if he didn't want to accept the role. Ironically, despite accepting the opportunity to play Luke again, he didn't end up being in Episode 7 that much anyways. The plot obviously revolves around Luke though, so him turning down the role would have created an entirely different film. Michael Arndt was the original writer for Force Awakens and wrote a script based on an outline by George Lucas for his own abandoned sequel trilogy. They haven't released many details of that script, but it's been confirmed that the story would have focused on the building of the New Republic after the fall of the Empire. All of the original main characters would have appeared, and their children would have been the new main characters. John Boyega was initially going to play Finn with his natural English accent, but both he and J.J. Abrams decided against it, saying that it just didn't feel right. One of the only differences between the Falcon that we see in Return of the Jedi and the one in The Force Awakens is that the radar dish has a different shape. This is because the dish was knocked off during the Battle of Endor. Apparently, there were several different designs for the new radar that J.J. Abrams rejected, but then someone suggested using the same dish as seen in the Blockade Runner and A New Hope because this ship was the Millennium Falcon's original design. The initial concept for Kylo Ren was to make him a dark Jedi called the Jedi Killer, who was able to gain power by directly absorbing the energy from a star, similar to Starkiller Base. He was actually a lot more like Darth Vader than Kylo ended up being, and at one point they considered making him a Vader impersonator, even wearing an exact copy of Darth Vader's suit. It turns out that Kylo Ren was the character that took the longest to design. His appearance went through several variations, as early mask designs were all grotesque versions of early concepts for Vader's mask. Interestingly, another idea they thought of was a chromed out First Order Stormtrooper, which you can expect resulted in being the blueprints for Phasma. At the beginning of Rey's vision, she finds herself in a Cloud City corridor. In the novelization of Episode 7, she sees Luke and Vader duel from a distance, but doesn't recognize them. The reason for the difference is because the novel is based on the original shooting script, so initially we were going to see this part of her vision in the movie. Before the script was finished, they were considering having Hayden Christensen reprise his role as Anakin and Darth Vader, and they even had concept art created to explore this possibility. An interesting twist they considered was making the Ghost alternate between the light and dark side versions of Anakin. This never did come to fruition, but there's still speculation that he may come back during Episodes 8 or 9, which I would honestly love to see. Originally, Rey wasn't going to live in the desert, but instead an ocean planet where the second Death Star crashed and was partially submerged. Part of the plot would have involved her diving into the underwater wreckage to find a map of the locations of the remaining Jedi, and we even would have seen the Millennium Falcon going underwater. Supreme Leader Snoke was originally going to be a female character. Instead of meeting Han Solo on his massive smuggling ship, the Iravana, the original plan was for Rey and Finn to meet him in a town called Crime City. The city's design was inspired by Casablanca and Middle Eastern architecture. architecture and, as you might expect, was home to some dangerous folks. This concept eventually evolved into Maz's castle. The reason there's a clip of Maz Kanata giving Luke's lightsaber to Leia in the first trailer is because they first planned on her accompanying the heroes back to the Resistance base on Dakar. During pre-production, Finn was given the name Sam and Rey was given the name Kira. Oscar Isaac was hesitant to take the role of Poe at first because originally he was supposed to die pretty early on in the movie in the TIE fighter crash with Finn. Luckily, JJ found a way to make him survive, and now he's one of the 3 title characters. Another character death that was changed was Leia. Instead of Han Solo, she was going to be the one killed, though it isn't clear whether or not it would have been in the same way. The original runtime of Episode 7 was 2 hours and 40 minutes long before being cut down to 2 hours and 16 minutes. I don't think I'm the only one who would have enjoyed a longer movie, especially if it meant giving a little more screen time to Mark Hamill, which it did by the way, but you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Initially, Finn's story of leaving the First Order was written very differently. At first, the deciding factor that would have caused him to leave was seeing a group of Resistance fighters being executed and thrown out of an airlock. After escaping with Poe and Crash Landing, he would be hailed by a local tribe and be reborn a hero. Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles in the original trilogy, confirmed that he turned down an offer from Disney to reprise that role. Lawson said that he turned it down because, quote-unquote, it would have just bored him. I'm not exactly sure how that's possible, and it's a pretty big letdown to the Wedge fans out there, but yeah, there was some hope, which is good because rebellions are built on hope. Another idea that ended up being scrapped was giving the Resistance a massive warship called the Warhammer. The Warhammer would have used a heavily armored front end to breach planetary shields like the one on Starkiller Base, and then deploy smaller ships to exploit that hole. Speaking of Starkiller Base, it was originally located on Dantooine, with the First Order converting an old Rebel base there. That's right, the very same Rebel base that Leia told Tarkin about when she was trying to save Alderaan. If Starkiller Base was on Dantooine, it would have been called the Doomstar, and its cannon would have fired out of a volcano. The voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars, James Arnold Taylor, originally recorded all of the dialogue for Obi-Wan that we heard in Rey's vision. However, in post-production, JJ decided to bring in Ewan McGregor. And with that comes the end of today's list, so what'd you guys think? Are there any ideas that I talked about that you wish were included, or some that you're happy were not? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to rate this video with a big fat thumbs up if you enjoyed it, share it with some of your Star Wars loving homies, and what's the other one? Subscribe for weekly content just like this. I also want to give one more shout out to today's sponsor, Geek Fuel, for generously sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to go to geekfuel.com/25OffJohnSolo to get your discounted box. I'll be seeing you all very soon. In case you forgot, my name is John Solo. May the Force be with you, and remember, John shot first. I move my hands a lot. Have you noticed that? Because I have.